Hello, everyone. I'd like to talk to you today about what Marie Kondo is missing. The name Marie Kondo is going to be familiar to many of you, I expect. For those of you that don't know her name, she's an author who wrote a book called The Magical Art of Tidying Up, which has been exceptionally successful. And in it, she recommends practices that have to do with decluttering and with tidying up, and talks about the benefits that that has in terms of mental clarity and in terms of making sure that we appreciate and value appropriately the things that we own. And what's been interesting, I mean, over the last little while, she seems to be everywhere. She's got a Netflix series where she goes into people's homes and helps them to deal with clutter. She's got I've even started to see articles in some of the newspapers where they say that because of her recommendations about decluttering, that charity shops and places that take donations have started to become overwhelmed, and the lines are across the road because people are bringing their excess things to these charity shops, and they're struggling to deal with the volume. So she's very clearly touched a nerve. And as those of us who are familiar with GTD look at her work, we see a lot of parallels. So for example, Marie Kondo talks about this idea that things should be in specific places. And that's of course very closely aligned with the GTD idea that we bring to organizing, which is that where something is matches its meaning to you. Marie Kondo also recommends, among other things, that when you're starting the process of decluttering, that you begin by basically just gathering everything in one big pile, whether it's your clothing or whatever it is you're decluttering. And of course, those of you that know GTD will recognize that that's a capture practice. That's exactly what we recommend when it comes to dealing with the things in our lives. But what I think is quite interesting, and this is the thing that as I was watching some of the shows in her Netflix series over the last little while, what's interesting is what I think she leaves out. She's primarily about things, right? The things that we own, and books, and kitchen items, and clothing, and she has a category for sentimental belongings and those sorts of things. And clutter in those areas, of course, can get in the way of mental clarity. Absolutely. I mean, people who live in environments where they feel like things are out of control, quite often that's because they are surrounded by things that have little meaning, or if they do have meaning, they're not in a place where it's easy for them to be accessed at the right time. So it's I certainly don't think that the core idea there is something that should be dismissed. I think it's very powerful. But I think the thing that's missing is the thing that many of us struggle with on a day-to-day basis. And for many of us, it's at a louder volume than the volume of disruption in our lives around being untidy. And that's those are the things that are going on in our heads and in our electronic worlds. So Marie Kondo talks about, how do you tidy a clothing drawer? When she has, for example, she has specific folding techniques that she recommends. That means that those clothes are very easily found when you want to find them. They're not in piles. They're sort of set up so that you can quickly get your hands on them. Great. I think that's a great approach. But if you ask the average person on the way to work, if you tap them on the shoulder in the train or the bus or in their car, and say, hey, what's on your mind? It might be that their house is a mess, but I'm guessing it's, well, I've got this meeting that I need to prepare for the boss, and that presentation to the client is now 3 days late, and that proposal that I sent off last week, I haven't heard anything back on that, and the emails in my inbox are starting to pile up. So I think it's the mental clutter that gets in the way for most of us before the physical clutter. And that's, I think, where GTD comes in, right? GTD is absolutely about making sure that the physical things in your life are well handled and are put in places that are helpful for you so that you can quickly retrieve them when you need them. But at the same time, GTD talks about, hey, what's on your mind is likely to be as distracting, and in many cases more distracting, than the physical things in your world. So if you're intrigued by Marie Kondo's ideas, great. And what I'd encourage you to do is take the next step, which is, what if you took that basic idea and applied it not just to the physical things in your world, but to everything? And let us know, if you make that decision, how we can help. Thanks for joining me today.